Burslem, which, Stoke-on-Trent, the city known as the Potteries. Many locals are as passionate about their local history as they are about their oatcakes. This is the case with the story of Molly Leigh. Her story has been passed down through the generations. It's hard to find anyone in Stoke-on-Trent who hasn't heard Molly Leigh's story. So why is she so well known in Stoke-on-Trent? Molly Leigh is a well-known local woman who was accused of witchcraft in 1746. Molly, born as Margaret in 1685, and lived in a cottage with her pet Blackbird on Hamel Road, Burslem. She was a loner and said to be very ugly with a nasty temper. She made a living by keeping cows and selling their milk in the town to passers-by, whilst having her pet Blackbird perched on her shoulder. Molly rarely attended church, which upset the minister, Reverend Spencer. It wasn't long before she was accused for any misfortune that happened in town. Reverend Spencer claimed that one day when he was in the local pub, the Turks had her Blackbird came and sat on the pub sign and turned the beer sour. Molly Leigh died in 1746 and buried at St. John's Graveyard before her trial of being a witch. However, it wasn't long till locals reported seeing her spirit haunting the streets of Burslem. Reverend Spencer and local clerics exhumed her body, opened the coffin, and put her alive Blackbird in with her. Then they repositioned her grave in a north to south direction to stop her spirit from returning. One story of Molly Leigh that is still being told to local children today is that if you go to her grave and go round saying, Molly Leigh chase me around the apple tree, her spirit will return. Many children over the decades have dared each other to do this. Was Molly Leigh a witch? That we will never know, but another local witch called Sybil Leigh claimed she was a descendant of Molly Leigh. However, in the era Molly lived in, it was easy to accuse someone's a witch. What do we know is true about her? The local newspaper, The Sentinel, looked into their archives and found a copy of her will. It revealed a lot about her person, her character, her business mind, those who were around her, and the fact she was actually a benefactor to the church and the poor of Burslem. It seems Molly wasn't in fact as lonely as the story goes. In fact, her will mentions mother, her Aunt Margaret Booker, and her cousins, and Don Bevan and Luke Bennett. All relatives and local people would benefit from her will after the death of Molly's aunt, mother, and cousin. A sum of £400 was to be shared equally among Anne's children. Cousin Luke was to receive Molly's silver plates and utensils. Her friend Alice Beach, who lived on land owned by Molly called Wall Flat in Burslem, Alice, who witnessed the will, was given Wall Flat after Molly died. The will begins by mentioning Molly's honored mother, Sarah Booth, who received the rent and profits of Molly's land at Jackfield. I do hereby expressly order and declare that Mr. Joseph Booth, my father-in-law, shall have nothing to do with the rents and profits of the said lands, but is hereby utterly excluded and debarred. Mr. Booth did receive gold mourning rings. So what about the local people of Burslem? 20 shillings would be paid to Alice Beach every year, and then to her descendants after her death. This cash would be used to buy 46 penny loaves to feed the poor inhabitants and widows of Sneyd and Burslem. After her mother, aunt, and cousins had all died, Molly had instructed Mr. Joseph Lovett the younger of Penkhull to sell off all her land and tenements apart from Wall Flat, which would remain with Alice Beach's descendants, and the profits used to build a hospital in Burslem for the reception and habitation of so many poor women as he think requisite. The rest of the profits would be used to provide food and clothing for these poor women of the parish. It seems the wicked witch was in fact a strong-minded, independent businesswoman, which some local men were scared of in those times. Whether she was a witch or not, it doesn't really matter, but you have to admire the greatness she did after life.